They cast out the young Apache woman until a rancher said, "You'll be my wife." The red earth, the soft rustle of the wind through the tall grass, and the distant mountains that seemed to touch the sky had always been her comfort. She was a young Apache woman, growing up in a small reservation town where life was simple but sometimes harsh. Her family was proud of their heritage, and she learned the stories of her ancestors from a young age, the tales of bravery, resilience, and survival. Every story carried a lesson, and every lesson shaped who she was. From early childhood, Maya had been different. While other children played quietly near the houses, she wandered farther, exploring the hills and the woods, talking to the animals, and asking questions that often made adults uneasy. She was curious and fearless, traits that sometimes brought her praise but more often earned her disapproval. Her parents, though loving, worried about her. They tried to guide her, but she often resisted, insisting on finding her own way. As she grew older, the difference between Maya and others became more pronounced. In her community, women were expected to follow certain paths, to marry within the reservation, to respect the elders' guidance without question, and to maintain the traditions in very specific ways. Maya respected her roots, but she also wanted to live freely, to make choices that felt right to her. Her questions about old rules and her refusal to accept some restrictions quietly began to stir tension among the elders. They saw her independence as rebellion. One particular incident changed everything. Maya had been helping her grandmother gather herbs in the nearby hills, a task she loved because it allowed her to be close to nature. On that day, she spoke openly about wanting to leave the reservation for a while, to see the world beyond the hills and rivers she had known all her life. She wanted to work, to learn new things, and maybe even travel to the cities she had only heard about. Her grandmother listened quietly but shook her head. "The world is not kind to young women who leave without protection," she warned gently, but Maya felt a fire in her chest, a need to live her life on her own terms. Word of her intentions spread quickly. The elders, who had already been wary of her spirit, began to talk more harshly. They whispered that Maya was too bold, too independent, and that she might bring shame to the family. She overheard conversations when she passed through the town square, their voices low but heavy with judgment. "She does not follow the ways of our people," one said. "She will bring trouble," another added. Maya tried to ignore them, but the feeling of being watched, judged, and criticized was growing heavier each day. Then came the day that changed everything. The elders called a meeting, something that rarely happened for someone as young as Maya. They gathered in the small community hall, their faces stern, and spoke of responsibility, tradition, and the importance of following the rules. When it was Maya's turn to speak, she tried to explain her desires, her dreams, and her wish to find her own path. But the elders were not moved. They said she was defying the ways of her people, that her actions could harm the family's honor, and finally, they said words that felt like a knife through her heart. She was cast out. Being cast out was more than just leaving the reservation. It was a public declaration that she no longer belonged, that the community would no longer support her, and that she had to survive on her own. For Maya, the shock was overwhelming. She had loved her home, loved her people, and suddenly she had nowhere to turn. Her family could not openly oppose the elders, and though some younger relatives looked at her with pity, none offered to help her. She walked out of the hall feeling the weight of rejection, the sun hot on her face, the wind sharp against her cheeks. The first night alone was the hardest. Maya found a quiet spot near the edge of the hills, where the trees gave her shelter and the river offered water. She wrapped herself in a blanket, but sleep would not come. Memories of childhood, of her mother's gentle voice, of her father's quiet advice, of laughter with friends, flashed through her mind. She wondered how quickly life could change, how a few harsh words could strip away the safety she had always taken for granted. Fear and loneliness wrapped around her like a heavy cloak. Yet, even in those dark hours, Maya felt something else, a spark of determination. She reminded herself that she had survived challenges before, that her ancestors had faced far worse, and that she had the strength to face this too. She decided that if she could not rely on her community, she would rely on herself. She would find work, shelter, and a new place where she could belong. The thought gave her a small but persistent hope, and slowly, as the moon rose high in the sky, she drifted into a restless sleep. In the following days, Maya began to explore the outskirts of town. She discovered that the world outside the reservation was not as welcoming as she had hoped. People looked at her with suspicion, assuming she was untrustworthy simply because she was alone and young. She tried to find odd jobs cleaning, gathering firewood, helping in fields, but often employers hesitated to hire her. Some were kind, offering small pieces of work, but it was never enough to live on comfortably. Hunger, exhaustion, and the biting cold nights tested her courage daily. Despite the hardships, Maya found moments of beauty and solace. She would walk through the open fields early in the morning, listening to birds sing and feeling the wind brush her face. She spoke to animals, learning their habits, and sometimes imagining that they understood her fears and dreams. She met a few travelers and wanderers who shared stories of distant lands, igniting in her a curiosity that could not be quenched. Even in her isolation, she felt alive in ways she never had before. The more she struggled, the more she discovered about herself. Maya realized that being cast out did not mean she was weak. It meant she was brave enough to face the world on her own. She learned to cook simple meals with whatever she could find, to mend her clothes, and to protect herself when danger approached. Nights were often lonely, but she began to keep a journal, writing down her thoughts, fears, and dreams. It became a companion, a silent friend who would never judge her, never abandon her. Through all of this, Maya's spirit remained unbroken. She remembered the stories of her ancestors, women and men who had faced impossible challenges and yet survived, thrived, and left their mark on the world. She told herself that she would do the same. Her heart ached for acceptance, for love, and for the warmth of a family, but she knew that those things could only come once she proved to herself that she could stand alone. And so, as the days turned into weeks, Maya continued to walk her own path. She faced scorn, rejection, and danger, yet with every challenge she grew stronger. She began to understand the true meaning of independence, not just freedom from others, rules, but the courage to make her own choices, the resilience to face life's difficulties, and the wisdom to see opportunity where others only saw obstacles. Maya's journey had only just begun. She did not yet know that her path would soon cross with someone who would change her life forever, someone who would see her not as an outcast, but as a woman of strength, courage, and unyielding spirit. But for now, she was alone, walking through the hills and valleys of a world that seemed harsh and unwelcoming, yet filled with the promise of something greater. And in that solitude, Maya found her first true lesson. Sometimes being cast out is not the end. Sometimes it is the beginning of a journey that will lead to a life far richer, far deeper, and far more extraordinary than she could have imagined. Maya had left the safety of her home and the familiar hills of the reservation behind, but the world she now faced was far harsher than she had imagined. Each day felt like a test, a challenge she had to survive if she wanted to live. The towns nearby were indifferent to her presence and sometimes even hostile. People glanced at her with suspicion, whispers following her footsteps wherever she went. She was alone, a young woman without a protector, and the weight of her solitude pressed down on her like a heavy stone. At first, Maya wandered through the countryside, moving from place to place. She slept under the open sky, beneath the stars that reminded her of home, trying to hold on to a sense of freedom even as hunger and cold gnawed at her. Some nights were unbearable. The wind cut through her thin blankets, and the sounds of wild animals made her heart race. Yet she refused to give in to despair. Every hardship became a lesson, and every night she survived gave her a growing sense of strength. She soon realized that to survive, she would need work, but finding employment as a young, alone woman was not easy. Many farmers and ranchers she approached looked her over with skepticism. "Are you sure you can handle it?" one man asked, eyeing her small frame as if she were fragile. Maya had learned to stand tall and speak with confidence, explaining her skills and her willingness to work hard. Slowly, a few offered her small tasks, feeding chickens, carrying hay, or helping with cleaning. The pay was meager, barely enough to buy food or a small blanket, but it was a start. Every day brought new challenges. Maya discovered that she had to be cautious not just of the people around her, but of the land itself. While the hills reminded her of home, the fields were unfamiliar and sometimes dangerous. She tripped over uneven ground, pricked herself on thorns, and was once chased by a stray dog that had mistaken her for a threat. Yet, she learned quickly. She observed the animals, studied the patterns of the land, and listened to the wind and the weather. Slowly, she became more confident, moving through the countryside with a grace and awareness that only came from necessity. Despite her independence, Maya often felt a deep loneliness. She missed the laughter of friends, the quiet wisdom of her grandmother, and the comforting presence of her family. There were moments when the despair threatened to overwhelm her. She would sit by a river, watching the water flow endlessly, and imagine what life would have been like if the elders had not turned her away. Tears would come unbidden, and she would hold herself tightly, whispering words of encouragement as if speaking to a friend she could not see. Yet in these moments of sadness, Maya also found courage. She realized that her strength was growing, even if it was painful. Every task she completed, every day she survived, was proof that she could endure far more than she had ever imagined. The small victories, mending her worn clothes, cooking a simple meal, finding a safe place to sleep, became reasons to keep going. She began to understand that her independence, once criticized by her community, was now her greatest asset. Maya also began to notice the kindness of strangers, small gestures that reminded her she was not entirely alone. A woman selling bread at the market offered her extra pieces when she saw Maya's empty hands. A farmer lent her a bucket to carry water when he saw her struggling. These moments, though brief, gave her hope and restored a little of her trust in the world. She realized that while some people could be cruel or dismissive, others could be generous and understanding, and that hope could be found in unexpected places. As the weeks passed, Maya began to take on slightly larger responsibilities. She worked on farms and ranches, helping to care for animals, gather crops, and clean stables. Her determination impressed a few of the landowners, who began to trust her with more important tasks. With each assignment, she learned new skills: how to ride a horse, how to mend fences, how to predict the weather by observing the clouds and the wind. These skills not only helped her survive but also gave her a sense of pride. She was becoming capable, independent, and resourceful, a woman who could navigate a world that had once seemed impossible. But the hardships never fully disappeared. One day, while collecting firewood in a dense forest, Maya lost her footing on a slippery slope and fell, twisting her ankle painfully. She had no one to help her, no medicine, and no warm place to rest. The pain was sharp, and the fear of being unable to work made her anxious. She hobbled to a nearby creek, soaked her ankle in cold water to reduce swelling, and wrapped it with a torn piece of cloth. For several days, she could only move slowly, relying on her limited strength to continue her tasks. The incident reminded her that survival was never easy, and that every day would demand courage, patience, and resilience. Maya also encountered people who tested her spirit in other ways. Some were unkind, treating her as an outsider or mocking her efforts. She was called names and warned to leave places where she sought work. Each insult cut deeply, but Maya refused to be broken. She learned to walk with her head high, to meet anger with calm, and to protect herself without retaliation. Over time, she realized that respect had to be earned, not demanded, and that the way she carried herself often determined how others treated her. Despite all the struggles, Maya found moments of joy that reminded her why life was worth living. She would watch the sunrise over the hills, the sky painted in shades of gold and pink, and feel a sense of wonder that no hardship could erase. She sang quietly to herself while working in the fields, her voice carrying across the open land. She made friends with a few animals, a stray cat that followed her, a horse that tolerated her gentle touch. These small connections became her companions, filling the empty spaces of her heart. As the months went on, Maya's confidence grew. She became skilled in ways that she had never imagined, handling animals, working long hours, and even helping teach younger workers some of the lessons she had learned from life itself. People began to notice her determination, and even those who had doubted her abilities started to respect her. She realized that while rejection had hurt deeply, it had also forced her to discover her true potential. She was no longer a girl dependent on the guidance of others. She was a young woman capable of carving her own path. Yet, even as she adapted, a part of Maya longed for something more than survival. She wanted connection, someone who would see her not just as a worker or an outsider, but as a person with dreams, feelings, and worth. She sometimes imagined meeting someone who could understand her, someone who could offer safety, companionship, and perhaps love. These thoughts kept her warm on the coldest nights, fueling a quiet hope that life could bring unexpected joy, even in the midst of hardship. One afternoon, as she was helping a farmer move hay bales, Maya noticed a distant figure on horseback watching her. There was something calm and kind in the way the man observed her, and she felt a strange mixture of curiosity and caution. He did not call out or approach immediately, but his presence lingered in her mind. Maya wondered who he was, why he was interested, and whether this encounter might change the path of her life. For now, she continued her work, but a small spark of anticipation began to grow, a sense that her life, which had seemed defined by struggle and loneliness, might soon take a new turn. Through all of her experiences, Maya continued to grow stronger, wiser, and more resilient. Each challenge taught her something important, that independence required courage, that kindness existed even in small gestures, and that survival was as much about spirit as it was about body. She had endured rejection, hardship, and fear, and yet she had not given up. Her journey, though painful, was shaping her into a woman of remarkable strength, a woman who could face the unknown with determination and hope. And so Maya pressed on, moving through the towns and fields, always learning, always growing, and always carrying the belief that life had something more in store for her. She did not yet know what awaited her beyond the next hill or around the next bend, but she knew that she had the courage to face it. Every day, every task, and every encounter was part of her journey, a journey of survival, discovery, and the quiet shaping of a future that could hold love, respect, and belonging. Maya's life on the edge was harsh, but it was also preparing her for something extraordinary. She had faced the world alone and found strength she had never known. And though she did not yet realize it, the person who would see her worth and change her life forever was closer than she thought, waiting for the right moment to appear in her story. Until then, she walked with determination, her heart full of hope and her spirit unbroken, ready for whatever the next day would bring. Maya's life on the outskirts of the reservation had taught her many lessons. She had learned to survive on her own, to trust her instincts, and to find strength in moments of hardship. Yet despite all her efforts, there was still a part of her that longed for connection, a friend, a companion, or even just someone who could see her as more than an outcast. She did not know that her life was about to change in ways she had never imagined. It happened one late morning when Maya arrived at a large ranch on the edge of a town several miles from her usual haunts. She had heard of this place from another worker who mentioned that the rancher sometimes needed extra hands, especially during harvest season. The ranch was vast, stretching over rolling hills with fields of golden wheat and a stable full of horses. It was both intimidating and beautiful, and Maya felt a flutter of hope as she approached the main house. The rancher, Samuel, was a tall, quiet man in his 40s. He had a calm demeanor, with eyes that seemed to study everything carefully without being harsh. His hands were strong from years of labor, and there was a sense of reliability about him that made Maya feel a strange sense of safety, even before they spoke. When she introduced herself, he nodded with a small smile and asked if she had experience with animals and farm work. Maya, though nervous, answered honestly, describing her recent experiences on farms and the skills she had developed while surviving on her own. Samuel studied her carefully, noting the determination in her eyes and the confidence in her voice. He could see that she was not someone who would give up easily, someone who had learned resilience the hard way. Without hesitation, he offered her a trial job on the ranch. Maya accepted eagerly, her heart racing with a mix of relief and excitement. For the first time in weeks, she felt that she might have found a place where she could belong, at least for a little while. The work was hard, as she had expected, but it was also rewarding. Samuel assigned her to help with the animals first, feeding the horses, cleaning the stables, and observing the herd. Maya quickly discovered that she had a natural way with the animals. The horses, who had been wary of new workers in the past, seemed to trust her instinctively. She spoke to them softly, moved carefully, and slowly earned their confidence. Samuel watched from a distance, impressed by her patience and skill. He rarely praised anyone openly, but the small nods and the subtle changes in his expression were enough for Maya to sense his approval. As days turned into weeks, Maya and Samuel began to cross paths more often. They would meet during breaks or while working side by side, and conversation gradually grew between them. Maya told him stories of her life on the reservation, her family, and the struggles she had faced since being cast out. Samuel listened without judgment, sometimes asking questions to understand more, sometimes just nodding quietly, letting her speak. There was a gentleness in his presence that Maya had not experienced in a long time, and she found herself feeling both comfortable and curious around him. Samuel, too, was drawn to Maya. He admired her courage, her intelligence, and her ability to endure hardships with dignity. He had seen many people come and go from the ranch, but few possessed the quiet strength that Maya carried. Her determination reminded him of his own youth and the lessons he had learned about resilience and hard work. He began to respect her not just as a worker but as a person of remarkable character. Each day, his appreciation grew, though he did not yet know how to express it fully. Life on the ranch was not without its challenges. Maya faced long hours, backbreaking labor, and the scrutiny of other workers who were wary of her presence. Some whispered behind her back, questioning why Samuel had hired her and whether she was capable of handling the work. Maya ignored the whispers, focusing instead on learning and improving. She knew that proving herself would take time, patience, and perseverance. Every task she completed successfully became a quiet victory, reinforcing her sense of self-worth and her belief that she could overcome any obstacle. Despite the hard work, Maya found moments of beauty and calm on the ranch. Early mornings were her favorite, when the sun rose over the fields and painted the sky with shades of pink and gold. She would walk among the animals, listening to the soft sounds of nature, feeling a peace that had been absent from her life for months. Samuel sometimes joined her during these moments, and they would walk together in silence, sharing the quiet without needing words. These walks became a small ritual, a time when both felt a connection that was growing stronger each day. One afternoon, while repairing a fence damaged by a recent storm, Maya struggled with a heavy wooden post. Samuel noticed her difficulty and stepped over to help without a word. Together, they lifted the post into place, working side by side in comfortable silence. When the task was complete, Samuel looked at her with a faint smile. "You handle yourself well," he said quietly. Maya, catching her breath, smiled back. "I've had to," she replied simply. There was an understanding between them, a recognition of shared respect that neither needed to explain in detail. As the weeks passed, Samuel began to trust Maya with more important tasks. She helped manage the animals, organize supplies, and even assist with planning parts of the ranch work. Her confidence grew with each responsibility, and so did Samuel's admiration. He found himself thinking about her even when she was not around, wondering how someone who had faced so much hardship could carry herself with such grace and determination. For Maya, the growing trust and acceptance from Samuel was unlike anything she had experienced since being cast out. She began to feel a sense of belonging, a hope that her life might finally stabilize. Maya also began to notice small changes within herself. The constant struggle for survival had made her strong, but the quiet companionship of Samuel brought a new dimension to her life. She started to feel a cautious optimism, a belief that not all people would judge her harshly or dismiss her. She allowed herself to relax slightly, to laugh more freely, and to imagine a future that was not defined solely by hardship. It was a subtle shift, but one that made her days brighter and her nights less lonely. Yet, Maya remained cautious. She had been cast out once, rejected by her own people, and she knew the pain of misplaced trust. She did not let herself rely too heavily on Samuel, keeping her independence intact while slowly allowing a bond to form. She observed him carefully, noting his actions, his fairness, and his quiet respect for everyone on the ranch. She realized that he was a man who valued integrity and hard work, someone she could trust, but trust had to be earned as it always had. The other workers on the ranch began to notice the connection between Maya and Samuel. Some were curious, others skeptical, and a few were quietly supportive. Maya handled their attention with the same quiet strength she had applied to every challenge before. She knew that judgment and gossip were part of life, and she chose to focus on her work, her skills, and the slowly growing bond with Samuel. Over time, respect began to replace suspicion, and her presence became accepted and appreciated. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky with deep orange and purple hues, Maya and Samuel sat together near the stables, finishing the day's work. They spoke of simple things, plans for the next day, the weather, memories of places they had seen. There was a calm intimacy in these conversations, a sense that they were slowly becoming part of each other's worlds. Samuel began to realize that his admiration for Maya had grown beyond respect. He found himself genuinely drawn to her courage, her spirit, and the quiet way she carried herself. For Maya, these moments brought a mixture of emotions. She felt gratitude for the opportunity to work and be respected, hope for the possibility of connection, and a cautious excitement for what the future might hold. She had faced rejection and isolation, yet here was someone who saw her for who she truly was, someone who valued her presence and her skills. It was a small but powerful revelation, one that filled her heart with warmth and curiosity. As the days turned into weeks, Maya and Samuel's connection deepened. Trust, respect, and admiration grew between them, laying the foundation for something that neither had anticipated. Maya began to see the ranch not just as a place to work, but as a place where she might finally belong. And Samuel, who had seen many passers-by come and go, began to understand that Maya was extraordinary, a young woman whose strength, resilience, and courage had touched him in ways he had never experienced before. Maya's life, once defined by hardship and loneliness, was slowly shifting. She had found a place where her skills mattered, where her determination was recognized, and where a quiet bond was forming with someone who could see her true worth. The ranch, the animals, and Samuel had become part of her new world, a world that offered not just survival, but the possibility of hope, trust, and even love. And though she did not yet know what the future held, Maya felt ready to face it. She had survived the worst, learned the most important lessons about independence and resilience, and discovered that even in the harshest conditions, life could bring unexpected kindness, companionship, and the promise of something extraordinary. Maya's life on the ranch had begun to feel like a place she could finally call home. She had earned the trust of Samuel and even gained the quiet respect of the other workers. Her days were still filled with hard work, from tending the animals to helping with the harvest, but now there was a sense of purpose that went beyond mere survival. She was building a life for herself, a life shaped by her courage, her determination, and the small but steady bond she shared with Samuel. Samuel noticed the way Maya carried herself. She was strong, capable, and unafraid to face challenges that would have daunted others. He admired her independence, but he also saw the kindness and warmth in her heart, the way she treated the animals, how she spoke to the younger workers, and even the quiet moments when she sang softly to herself while working. Over time, his admiration grew into something deeper, something he did not entirely understand at first but could no longer ignore. One afternoon, as the sun hung low over the golden fields, Samuel called Maya aside. They walked together along the edge of the pasture, the soft rustle of the wind in the grass the only sound around them. Samuel had been thinking for weeks about how to express the feelings he had been keeping inside, feelings that were too strong to remain unspoken. Maya noticed his seriousness and felt a flutter of curiosity mixed with nervous anticipation. "Maya," Samuel began, his voice steady but gentle, "I've been watching you these past months. I've seen how hard you work, how you handle every challenge with strength and courage. I've seen your kindness, your determination, and your spirit. You are unlike anyone I've ever known." Maya listened quietly, her heart beating faster. She had grown fond of him too, but she did not expect what came next. Samuel stopped and looked at her directly, his eyes filled with sincerity. "I want you to know something important. I have come to care for you more than I can put into words. And I want you to be part of my life in a way that goes beyond this ranch, beyond work or duty." Maya's breath caught in her throat. She had not anticipated such words. Her mind raced with questions, doubts, and a cautious hope that maybe this was real. Then Samuel said the words that would change everything. "Maya, I want you to be my wife." The words hung in the air, carrying a weight that made Maya's chest tighten. For a moment she could not speak. She thought of the elders who had cast her out, of the loneliness and hardship she had endured, and of the strength she had discovered within herself. Marriage had once seemed impossible for someone like her, someone rejected and cast aside. And now here was a man offering her not just companionship, but a future built on respect, trust, and love. Maya's mind swirled with emotions. She felt joy, disbelief, hope, and fear all at once. Could she trust him completely? Would she be safe? Would this truly be a life where she could belong? She had faced betrayal and rejection before, and the memory of that pain made her hesitate. Yet, there was something in Samuel's eyes, in the quiet sincerity of his voice, that told her he meant every word. He had seen her for who she truly was, not as an outcast, but as a woman of courage, intelligence, and heart. After a long pause, Maya finally spoke. I don't know what to say," she admitted, her voice trembling slightly. "I've been cast out once before. I've learned to rely only on myself. Marriage, it feels so far away from the life I've been living." Samuel nodded, understanding her hesitation. "I know, Maya, I understand your fear, but I promise you I do not want to take your independence away. I only want to share my life with you, to build something together where you are respected, valued, and safe. Nothing will change who you are." Maya considered his words carefully. She thought of the months she had spent surviving alone, of the strength she had discovered in herself, and of the small moments of peace and connection she had found on the ranch. She realized that this offer was not a surrender of her independence but an opportunity to create a life where she could continue to grow, to thrive, and to be loved without judgment. Slowly, she nodded, a mix of relief and hope washing over her. "Yes," she whispered. "I will marry you." The decision brought a new energy into Maya's life. She felt a sense of joy and anticipation she had never known before. Suddenly, the hard work on the ranch did not feel like a burden but like a path to a shared future. Every morning, she woke with a renewed sense of purpose, knowing that she was building a life not only for herself, but with someone who truly respected her. Even the smallest tasks, feeding the animals, tending the fields, mending fences, took on new meaning as each action became part of a larger story of love, partnership, and hope. Yet the road was not without challenges. The community still whispered about her, questioning why Samuel would choose someone cast out by her own people. Maya felt a flicker of doubt and anxiety, worried about gossip and judgment. But Samuel stood beside her, offering quiet support and unwavering respect. Together, they faced the whispers and skepticism, proving through their actions and commitment that their bond was real. Maya discovered that trust and acceptance from others were not as important as the trust and acceptance they shared between themselves. As wedding preparations began, Maya experienced a mix of excitement and nervousness. She had never imagined a day where she would be celebrated, respected, and loved openly. Samuel wanted the ceremony to be simple but meaningful, honoring both her Apache heritage and the life they were building together. Maya felt a deep sense of gratitude for this, recognizing that he had not only seen her strength but also her identity and her roots, embracing them as part of their shared future. During this time, Maya reflected on her journey. She thought about the elders who had cast her out, the cold nights she had endured, and the struggles she had faced while surviving alone. Each hardship, she realized, had prepared her for this moment. She had learned resilience, patience, and the importance of self-reliance. But she had also learned the value of connection, of kindness, and of being seen for who she truly was. These lessons shaped her understanding of love and partnership, teaching her that trust and respect were the foundation of any relationship. On the day of the ceremony, the ranch was quiet and peaceful, the golden fields bathed in sunlight. Samuel and Maya stood together, surrounded by a few close friends and family who had come to support them. Maya wore a simple dress, her hair braided in a traditional style, while Samuel dressed modestly, his eyes reflecting the sincerity of his feelings. As they exchanged vows, Maya felt a profound sense of belonging, acceptance, and hope. She realized that this moment was not just a union of two people, but a celebration of resilience, courage, and the strength of the human spirit. After the ceremony, life on the ranch continued, but now with a deeper sense of partnership. Maya and Samuel worked side by side, sharing responsibilities, supporting each other, and building a life grounded in mutual respect. Maya continued to honor her Apache roots, teaching Samuel and others about her culture, traditions, and stories. In return, Samuel offered guidance, protection, and unwavering support, creating an environment where Maya could thrive both as an individual and as part of a loving partnership. The love between Maya and Samuel grew with each passing day. They faced challenges, as all couples do, but their foundation of respect, trust, and understanding allowed them to overcome difficulties with grace and patience. Maya realized that true strength was not just about independence or survival, but also about allowing oneself to be seen, to trust, and to share life with someone who valued and respected her fully. Maya's journey, which had begun with rejection and hardship, had transformed into a story of hope, love, and empowerment. She had been cast out, faced the harsh world alone, and discovered her own strength. But in Samuel, she found a partner who recognized her worth, cherished her spirit, and offered a future filled with possibility. Through this union, she learned that being vulnerable and opening oneself to love could be as courageous as facing the toughest challenges alone. And so Maya's life reached a turning point. The young woman once cast out by her own people had found not just safety and security, but acceptance, love, and a sense of belonging she had never thought possible. Her past struggles were not forgotten, but they had shaped her into a woman capable of facing the future with confidence, hope, and a heart open to the possibilities of life. Life after marriage brought Maya a sense of peace and belonging that she had never known before. The ranch, once simply a place of work, had become her home. The vast fields, the quiet animals, and the rhythm of daily labor provided a stability she had longed for since being cast out. Yet it was not just the land that made her feel at home. It was the partnership she shared with Samuel, built on trust, respect, and understanding. Together, they created a life that balanced work, love, and community, a life where Maya could finally breathe freely. The first months after their marriage were filled with small joys. Each morning, Maya woke to the sound of roosters crowing and the soft rustle of wind through the fields. She prepared breakfast for Samuel, and together they walked to the stables, checking on the animals and planning the day's work. There was a rhythm to their days, a sense of purpose and accomplishment. Maya discovered that the joy of working side by side with someone who valued her efforts and her presence was unlike anything she had experienced before. It was not just love, it was mutual respect, and it made every task, no matter how simple or hard, meaningful. Maya also began to find ways to honor her Apache roots while embracing her new life. She taught Samuel about the stories and traditions of her people, sharing the wisdom she had learned from her grandmother and the elders. They would sit in the evenings by a small fire, and she would recount tales of courage, resilience, and survival. Samuel listened intently, often asking questions to understand better. Maya realized that sharing her culture with someone who truly cared for her was a gift, and in turn, it strengthened the bond between them. It was as if her past, once a source of pain, had become a bridge to a new and meaningful future. Despite the happiness she found, Maya never forgot the struggles she had endured. She often reflected on the nights she had slept under the stars, the hunger she had felt, and the loneliness that had once weighed heavily on her heart. These memories were bittersweet, reminders of the strength she had developed and the resilience that had carried her through. She understood now that her hardships had shaped her into a woman capable of facing life with courage and hope. Rather than feeling bitterness, she felt gratitude for survival, for lessons learned, and for the chance to build a life filled with love and purpose. Life on the ranch was not always easy. There were storms that damaged crops, animals that fell ill, and times when work seemed endless. Yet, Maya and Samuel faced these challenges together. They learned to communicate openly, support one another, and make decisions as partners. Maya discovered that love was not just about affection or companionship, but about trust, teamwork, and the willingness to share both burdens and joys. Each challenge they overcame strengthened their bond and deepened their appreciation for each other. The community, once skeptical of Maya and her place on the ranch, gradually began to accept her. People noticed her skills, her resilience, and her kindness. Some who had once whispered about her now sought her advice or assistance, respecting the woman who had endured so much and still carried herself with dignity. Maya realized that acceptance from others was not immediate, but through her actions and the strength of her character, she had earned respect. This recognition was not the foundation of her happiness, it came from within, but it was a confirmation that she was not alone, that her life could be one of influence and connection as well as love. Over time, Maya and Samuel began to plan for the future. They discussed expanding the ranch, caring for more animals, and improving the land. They also considered starting a family. Maya thought about the life she wanted to offer a child, one of safety, love, and learning. She imagined sharing with them the lessons she had learned from her own journey, the importance of resilience, the value of courage, and the beauty of hope. She realized that her past, once a source of pain, could now become a guide for future generations, a legacy of strength and survival. Maya's confidence and self-assurance grew with each passing day. She was no longer defined by the rejection she had faced or the hardships of her early life. Instead, she was defined by the choices she had made, the strength she had discovered, and the life she was creating alongside Samuel. She became a figure of quiet inspiration, showing others, especially young women in her community, that it was possible to rise above adversity, to find one's voice, and to shape one's own destiny. Their partnership flourished not just in work but in companionship. Maya and Samuel shared simple pleasures, evening walks across the fields, quiet conversations by the fire, and laughter over small mishaps on the ranch. They celebrated milestones together, from the first successful harvest to the care of a new foal. Maya realized that love was as much about shared daily experiences as it was about grand gestures. The everyday moments, filled with respect and understanding, became the heart of their life together. Maya also made time to mentor others. She shared her skills with younger workers, teaching them about the land, animals, and the importance of perseverance. She spoke gently, encouraging patience, resilience, and careful observation of the world. She became known not only for her hard work but for her wisdom and guidance, someone who could teach and inspire through both words and actions. Seeing others grow under her guidance gave her immense satisfaction and reinforced her sense of purpose. One quiet evening, as Maya watched the sun set over the distant mountains, she reflected on the incredible journey that had brought her here. From the pain of being cast out to the trials of surviving alone, to the unexpected connection with Samuel, her life had been shaped by both hardship and hope. She realized that each challenge, each moment of doubt, and each act of courage had been a step toward this life, a life filled with love, respect, and possibility. The hardships of the past had not broken her. They had made her stronger, wiser, and more capable of appreciating the beauty and depth of her present life. Maya understood now that true fulfillment came from embracing both the struggles and the joys of life. She had learned to face adversity with courage, to trust herself, and to open her heart to love and partnership. The ranch, the animals, and the community had become part of her story, and Samuel had become more than a companion. He was a partner who recognized her worth and shared in the dreams she held for the future. As the years passed, Maya and Samuel built a life that was both practical and meaningful. They expanded the ranch, improved the land, and continued to care for their animals with dedication and love. Maya's reputation as a skilled and wise woman grew, and she became a source of guidance and inspiration for others in the area. People who had once doubted her now looked to her as an example of resilience, courage, and the power of determination. Maya never forgot the lessons of her early life, the rejection, the loneliness, and the struggles she had faced. But she carried those lessons with gratitude, knowing that they had prepared her for the life she now lived. She had discovered that strength was not just about surviving hardship, but about building a life of purpose, trust, and love. She had learned that acceptance and respect must often be earned, but they could also be shared generously once discovered. Her life with Samuel continued to be a partnership grounded in equality and mutual respect. They faced challenges together, celebrated successes together, and learned from each other every day. Maya realized that love at its best was not about control or possession, but about support, understanding, and shared growth. She felt fortunate not only for the security Samuel provided, but for the way he valued her as an individual, a woman of courage, intelligence, and heart. In her quieter moments, Maya would walk through the fields, reflecting on her journey. She thought of her ancestors, the stories of survival and resilience, and the strength she had drawn from her heritage. She knew that she was living a life her ancestors would have been proud of, not just surviving but thriving, contributing, and shaping a future filled with hope. She understood that her journey, once filled with hardship, had become a story of empowerment, love, and triumph. Maya's life became a testament to the idea that even after rejection and pain, a person could find belonging, love, and purpose. Her experiences had shaped her into a woman who could face the future with confidence, compassion, and wisdom. She had learned that true strength was not only in independence but in connection, in opening oneself to trust and partnership, and in embracing life fully, despite the challenges. And so Maya's story, which began with loneliness and hardship, ended not in despair but in hope and fulfillment. She had been cast out, yet she found a home. She had faced struggle, yet she found love. She had endured rejection, yet she found acceptance. Through resilience, courage, and an open heart, Maya transformed her life into one of joy, purpose, and lasting impact. Her journey became an inspiration, a reminder that even in the darkest moments, strength, hope, and love can lead to a life richer than one could ever imagine.